On the heels of the peace deal made in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas, and the arrest of Oxford University student 20-year-old Samuel Williams for chanting anti-Semitic chants at a demonstration, I came across an article of which I was torn between bringing to our table on this podcast or not bringing it to the table.
Yeah.
It is related to the Holocaust. So I'm going to explain to you what it is, and then we can discuss whether I should have brought it or not. All right. There's an infamous photo which is held these days at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. The title of the photo is The Last Jew of Vinnytsia, and shows a Jewish man knelt on the side of a mass grave and a German soldier pointing his pistol to the man's head.
Yeah.
The victim has never been named, but Holocaust historian Jürgen Matthaus says that the German soldier was named as Jacobus Onnen, a 33-year-old Schutzstaffel, which is the SS, German for SS, an SS officer. The photo was given to the US by a Holocaust survivor in 1945 and was used as a piece of evidence in the war trial of Adolf Eichmann. At that time, it was believed to have been taken in Vinnytsia, 125 miles southwest of Kiev. But this was revised as a diary entry of an Austrian soldier claimed it was at a place called Berikhiv, between Kiev and Vinnytsia. It turned out that the German soldier, he entered in the SS in 1932, and he died in the war in 1943. Okay. Before the war, Onnen, the soldier, was a school teacher of languages and physical education at the Deutsche Kolonialschule in Witzenhaven in Germany.
Yeah.
So why was I torn into bringing up the subject about this guy? The historian side of me thought it was like a piece of a jigsaw that needed to be put into place to complete or a piece of tile to put in a mosaic, of history. But then my humanitarian side asked me how by knowing the name and a little bit about an SS officer killing the last Jew in the queue at the mass grave, how would it change the course of history as we move on into the future? So I suppose I'm asking if the true identity of the soldier is all that important in the wider scope of things, and if it was a necessary detail of something, a new detail of something that happened 80 years ago. And that was my sort of, should I not? Is it important? Is it not?
I understand, yeah.
Especially at this moment in time when Jewish people are in the forefront of an awful lot of headlines, should we say?
Yes.
So basically, my premise for this podcast is that should that sort of thing be brought up, because of is it really all that important?
Right. I understand where you're going with this. I'm going to give you a personal example of it. Again, personal, and then I'll go into bigger scope of things. I did some research into a relative of mine who was killed during the war, I've mentioned before. And I did some research online about his name, which is quite personal to me, and I have some personal effects of his stored back in the UK. I did some tracking. He died because of a U-boat action off the coast of the UK. And I did some research and I found a bit more. Now, and I did some digging, and I clicked on it, and I actually could look in the eyes. This is an incredible, powerful thing of the internet now, of the guy who would have ordered the death, effectively the death of my, okay, not, I wouldn't say relative, of yeah, somebody within my family who I've got a bit of a connection with for raise. And that was quite chilling. When it first happened, there was the guy that did it. Only a young guy themselves, younger than the guy he killed. And I thought, well, there's two things here. From a personal point of view, that's of interest to me. It's evidently interesting enough for somebody to have collated all this information about U-boat action, and my relative is mentioned on this website along with the person. If they didn't push the button themselves, they'd have certainly ordered, I don't know the German for fire, I can't remember what it is, but yeah, or however that happens. So yeah, so it's interesting. It's still history. It's relevant history. I now know the name, and I've been very tempted to do some research about the name and go a bit deeper. And I don't know whether to make contact with the family in Germany or not, if they still exist, or Austria, wherever he came from, to say, no hard things. I'm just a bit curious about this guy. And which I think would be quite interesting. I would imagine, given his age and everything in the time of the war, that he was probably a member of the Hitler Youth. So he could have been fanatical. Yeah. This was happened in 1945. So, and he was a young guy. So evidently he was in charge of a U-boat at a very young age, which would suggest to me they'd run out of the older guys by that point. So again, from a personal point of view and a historical point, in the scheme of things, it's probably not that important. It's still relevant history. I'm not saying everything should be named and shamed. Now, the argument is I was merely following orders for anyone. I think is a weak point to have. For example, yeah, we've all got a sense of right and wrong. If that guy willingly put a gun to the back of, we have to imagine, an innocent person whose only crime was they just happened to have had the wrong ethnicity, faith, whatever else you want to put on it. Us knowing his name, the image is a very powerful image. I know the one you're talking about. It's the same one. It's a very powerful image. It says a lot. Now, if you've ever read, I've got some books behind me about it, and there was actually an interesting book written some years ago by an historian, an economist historian called Niall Ferguson, I think, called The War of the Worlds, or the Wars of the World. Wars of the World. Yeah. And it looks into this and the way that the way they built up a systematic way of doing things, and the inhumanity that man can do to other men. So it does quite an interesting study of this. And there's cases of one Jewish girl, there was a guard about to shoot her or do something, and she did this to him, 23, to tell him her age. Quite a moving moment to read, and it's just an episode in this book that stuck out in my mind. Okay, can we draw parallels? We're a heartbeat away from this kind of thing being repeated, if it isn't already being repeated in smaller parts around the world. So yeah, from that point of view, an ordinary guy who was a teacher probably might have been a very good teacher, was so drawn into an ideology that he was prepared to take somebody's life in cold blood. And we know the name. Remember that the Germans were kept very efficient records of all this. Well, even to the point we know that it's surprising we don't know the the victim's name. I'm calling him victim because that's what he is. The victim's name at this point. Yeah, I know they dug the big pits. They're full of bodies at this point. He's looking down. He knows his fate at this point already. I mean, that is a horrific thing to do to anyone. And it's a cowardly act. I mean, the frightening thing is how close are any of us to actually being able to do that as well on occasions. We have enough in the world that actually forms us into dividing.
My argument about knowing the guy's name and the history about him is that it brings a little bit of humanity into him. And I'm not sure if it's required, or if it's, what's the word I'm looking for? If it's
of relevance of idea. Yeah, it's. I mean, his family, the soldiers, well, I'm going to call them the soldiers for want of a better term. The soldiers' family are probably not appreciative of his name being known, because it probably is. He doesn't have values that they would probably hold. I mean, history. To me, it's an historical relevant. It is relevant in an historical context.
Yeah, why I said that my historian side is saying, that you need to put all these little pieces into this mosaic to create this, so you can get a complete picture.
I think the humanitarian side of it is the fact he had a perfectly normal career before hostility, like say, joined the Nazi Party in 1932 or the SS, but before that was a school teacher, probably left university, became a school teacher, got so hooked into an ideology. And I often say this about, I make this point to students, well, how could anyone follow Hitler? At the time, Hitler offered solutions in Germany to a destroyed country, an all but economically destroyed country for many. And there was somebody who was putting pride back into people. And I can't think of any modern parallels in the moment around the world where that could be classed as true. But we are not. The frightening thing is, yes, it could be a reality somewhere in the world, be it Europe, Asia, even, or somewhere else.
Yep.
And I do think we have to remember it. And yes, maybe bringing in people's individual names proves that we could all be susceptible.
Perhaps this Samuel Williams will be the modern day comparison, being influenced at university.